They are setting the conditions for a world war. Putin may be strategic, but Trump most certainly is not. He's doing it for whatever. He wants unlimited executive power. That would define him as a dictator. He is blowing America's greatest strengths. What is the operational, let alone the strategic level of doing this?
Can you see fascism coming back?
Yeah, it is. It's not even controversial. What's going on with ICE? Why you have to brutalize people? Is this America's future? Is this what Americans want their kids to grow up? World War II looks like it solved fascism. That generation of people who understood, they're all dead. They're going to barrel us all into a world war.
Professor PAINE, honor having you here. Do you believe we are entering a third world war?
First of all, it's a pleasure being here, an honor. We have reckless leaders in many countries across the globe who are focusing on operational objectives, which is me staying in power, and if other people don't like it, me's still going to be in power, and they are setting the conditions for a world war, right? We currently have wars in the Middle East. We have big war in Ukraine, right? There's big war on the Horn of Africa. The Sahel is anything but stable. And we have China wondering whether Taiwan's the next thing. And if these things ever merge, it's going to be truly ugly.
Countries want to attack Europe from both sides, the United States of America and Russia. There has never been a situation like this, I think.
Yeah, the United States is currently following a continentalist foreign policy. It is a horrendous mistake. The United States continues. It'll be a moment of precipitous decline, and it'll be a decline of Americans' own making. In the case of Europe, your problem is Russia and Ukraine. The United States is a long way away. And it's interesting about alliance systems. You think about the reason they form is because everybody trusts each other and they work together. Actually, what forms alliances are existential threats. So Europe is going to use this one to improve its institutions, to integrate. And in Europe, you have a really deep set of institutions that you lacked in 1945 when it was a real mess, right? When you had the Red Army all through Eastern Europe, as a Pole, you would feel this deeply, right? And now there are all kinds of institutions, and Eastern Europe is part of the whole thing. The European communities, the European Union. And so you have ample cards at your disposal to play this well. But the United States is taking a time out from the positive sum, rules-based maritime order to do a negative sum continental event. And it's in the age of nationalism. It won't end well.
Can you see fascism coming back?
Yeah, it is. It's not even controversial. It's what's so amazing to me is that you look at World War II, and it was fought to get rid of fascism because that was such a mess. And then you're left with communism. It's World War I that gives you fascism and communism. That's the mismanaged war that gifted us fascism and communism. But then World War II looks like it solved fascism. And then that generation of people who understood, they're all dead, right? All the people who lived through World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, and gained tremendous wisdom from the horrors they experienced, they're gone.
Do you worry about the replay from the 1939?
I worry about looking at reckless leaders who are thinking at the operational level, they're going to barrel us all into a world war. And if that happens, it may be terminal for all of us. So we need to do something other than that. It is in no one's interest to do so. Putin and his buddies are all sticking together. And the ones who have doubts apparently go flying out of 6-story windows. But ultimately, they're going to become the menu items of the Chinese. And the Chinese will not treat them well. Why? Because the Russians have treated Chinese horrendously over their long histories. The czars took territory from China exceeding U.S. territory east of the Mississippi. That like divides the continental states not quite in half. And thereafter, Stalin's telling Mao to halt his offensive at the Yangtze River when Mao's doing really well in the Civil War because he wants a divided China. Mao eventually figures it out. Stalin's fighting the last Chinese in the Korean War and making the Chinese, unlike the United States, which gives its allies a lot of things. No, the Russians want cash on the barrelhead. And then the Russians are thinking of trying to get the United States to allow them to nuke China in the 1969 border war. And we go, no, not going to do that. So the Chinese know all about this. So now the tables are turned. They're strong and Russia's weak. Have fun with it because the Chinese are going to come get them. So then for the Russian elite, you got a choice. Do you want to be at the tender mercies of the Chinese or of the Europeans, the Western Europeans, where there is a large tradition of forgiveness, right? Look at Germany and France. They're not refighting World War II. They've put that behind them. So Russia wants to put things behind it, big boo-boos under Putin. The only way is through Europe to do that. The alternative for Russians is their Chinese, and they will eat their lunch. And the Russians, wonderful racists that they are, talk about the Mongol yoke. When the Mongols took over Russia for the 13th century, Russians became the tax collectors of the Mongols, this extractive role that they've never shaken. That's what they do, is shake people down, right? Give me your protection money. That's going to be back. That's their future, unless they do something with.
Look at what ICE is doing here in the United States. It looks like Mussolini 2.0.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. And think about, there are many Americans who are going to the streets and protesting this. And that story isn't over. This country, like all countries, has a positive part of its history, but it has a very negative part. This country was based on slavery. Talk about the most evil thing you can do to others. Poland has its own stories of intolerance to different ethnic groups, right? This is human, that we humans, what we do to each other. And we have not fully overcome our legacy of slavery and what we've done to others. And there is this brutal undercurrent to America. And what's going on with ICE, of why you have to brutalize people. This is, there are many Americans who think this is terrible. And we'll see. This is a great question. Is this America's future? Is this what Americans want their kids to grow up and be? I get it. You want immigration to be legal. And you don't want people who are illegally coming in. They need to go home, and there are people who come in quite legally like you did, right? You came in with a passport and you're all visaed in, and that's perfect. Other people need to come in that way. So by all means, you want to enforce these things. But this gratuitous brutality and then I think about all these mass people, and they think they're big, tough ICE agents. What a wuss. I mean, I'm just a dumbass professor. And you have me here asking me whatever questions, and then I got my name on it. So what are these ICE officers doing? If you're not proud of it, then don't do it. Take the masks off and be who you are. Oh, and this is, I don't know if this is true, but apparently the Russians hacked. Well, they have hacked many of our databases. And apparently Vlad the Bad in Moscow has dumped the names of the ICE agents into the internet to make it available. I guess he's mad about the Russian cargo ships that are being boarded now. So now he's dumped the names. Apparently, I don't know if this is true. You can go double check, but it would fit the no honor among thieves continental mindset. So the continentalists do not cooperate well with each other. They just do their own things. Whereas democracies can cooperate, and it's powerful. Institutions allow people to cooperate. It's powerful.
J.D. Vance, your vice president, calls himself an isolationist.
Okay.
Do you believe him?
Well, he's like a chameleon. Apparently, he changes his stories. But yeah, I can believe that he's an isolationist. But here's the problem with that. What was it? Is Churchill or someone? I think it was like a Harvard commencement address, and I can be wrong. He said that because America's gone through these phases of wishing to play the ostrich and the world will go away if I shut my eyes. And I think it was Churchill who said, you can turn your back on problems, but they will come knocking on your front door, whether you like it or not. So he may be an isolationist. We had America Firsters, the original America Firsters, right? And you should look for, if you haven't seen it, I don't know, in Poland, did you? Yeah, you wouldn't have. There's a very famous children's illustrator, Dr. Seuss, but he was a cartoonist in World War II, and he did a great cartoon about America Firsters who were saying, oh, we don't have to worry about the Japanese and the Nazis and all this other stuff. And his great cartoon came out the day before Pearl Harbor, and it's like, oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Problems will come your way.
Is American isolationism just an internal rhetorical tool?
No, it's real.
It's real?
America has real domestic problems. And so voters are looking at it and going, look at all the money you wasted in Afghanistan and Iraq, and exactly where did that get us? And of course, our European allies told us not to do
I thought
Iraq.
that Americans want to keep hard control over Europe.
The United States is never going to get hard control over Europe. Dream on. If the United States keeps doing what it's doing, it's going to get expelled from its military bases quite rapidly, and then the dollar will no longer be the reserve currency, and then that'll lead to a debt crisis in this country. But you know what? I could be totally wrong about this. I'm not an economist. Try an economist to work out how all that works. But yeah, we're making what I would call pivotal errors. A pivotal error is once you make it, there's no going back to the way the world was. So Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, there's no way of him undoing that one. He's off to a whole world of hurt. And if the United States does not reverse course on destroying our key strengths, no one's going to give them back to us. And the decisions going forward will be worse than what were available to us before we did all these own goals, right? You know, an own goal is when you score you score a goal in your own net for the other team. It's an unwise thing to do if you plan to win the game.
Do you see history repeating itself?
So I'm just going to do them in chronological order, and it's just me thinking about things. Who knows whether they're right things? I think about 1914, all of these parallel wars where everyone's got different objectives. And then it coalesces into a world war. But when you look at the two alliance systems in World War I, the members of each alliance system can't agree what their ultimate objectives are. They all want different hunks of territory in different places. And a lot of it's even mutually exclusive within alliance systems. So that war starts, it goes global, but no one can end it because you can't end it without your allies because you won't survive the event. But you can't agree among your allies how you would end it. How would you ever get winnings that were sufficient to satisfy everyone? So that's one analogy. So let's do another one, which is 1918, after that war is over. That war blows it blows a variety of dynasties, right? The Romanov dynasty in Russia, Hohenzollern dynasty in Germany, Habsburgs in Austria-Hungary, they are gone. And meanwhile, the Qing dynasty has already gone for different reasons. And you are into a whole new world as a result of all of this. And you wonder at the end of the Cold War, and we've had this wonderful inter-Cold War period when China and Russia turn inward, and the United States more or less followed the rules, and that's over. So anyway, they're wondering about whether you're getting these tectonic changes of the United States absenting itself from its allies and things like that. Another one would be the 1918 one actually pertains to something a little different. 38, you can think about Munich, right? Where I think it was the Manchester Guardian said that Munich, it's selling out your friends in order to appease your enemies, right? This clever phrase, where you look at the US sellout of its allies going on currently, and you wonder, okay, is that an analogy of the world breaking down? And you think about the victors after World War I, you have the Germans who go rogue, right, when Hitler comes to power. And now you wonder today, is the United States going rogue? And how's that all going to be? It's like a US and Germany swap of places. Another possibility is you can look at 1947. And when Russian land grabs and its behavior in general made clear that the World War II Grand Alliance was over, right? And so everyone goes, oh, gee whiz, we're into a Cold War. And so you wonder with the United States what the long-term plan is going on here. And then a final one that I had, which is the McCarthy era. This is US domestic politics. So you have a populist Republican, Senator Joseph McCarthy, who's targeting the Democratic Party, saying they're all a bunch of communists. And his accusations are mostly inaccurate. I mean, there were communist spies. It's just McCarthy had trouble figuring out who was who in that one. And he winds up being censored by the Senate. So he's a big deal in 1950, but 54, he's been censored by the US Senate. And he shares something in common with Donald Trump, which is his lawyer, Roy Cohn, who advised both of them. And Cohn's advice is never apologize or admit any wrongdoing, always counterattack with greater force than received, use the legal system as a weapon, not as a recourse to justice, manipulate media ruthlessly, use fear as a shield and a sword, and build a fortress of loyalty around yourself. So this is advice that apparently Trump took to heart in the 80s. And it works up to a point, right? McCarthy got censored, and he died rather a miserable death, as did Roy Cohn. The United States is currently gravely weakening all the things that make it strong, right? It's weakening its alliance system. It's blowing its funding for...
You mean history is all over again? 1920s, 1930s.
We're repeating a number of mistakes, but we got a different strategic situation. Europe now is strong. Europe is wealthy. It has a massive...
Do you truly believe that Europe is strong?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Europe needs to invest in a military. Europe is very wealthy.
There's only some countries, like my country, like Poland. But I think that we are exceptions. A lot of people think that Europe is over-regulated. That
Correct.
We spent, last 10 years mostly trying to introduce legal systems, legal frameworks.
That's important. Those are the institutions that channel decision-making. That's good preparation for the moment that we're in right now. And if you think how radically things have changed, I mean, go back to 2022 and ask Germans about how they're looking at Nord Stream 2 and other things compared to now. It's a radical difference because of this existential threat. And alliances are formed by existential threats. It's less about, hey, I like you or don't like you, and it's much more about who is coming to destroy me. And you think about one of the most effective alliances in human history was the alliance among Britain, the United States, and Russia in World War II, right? It's because Hitler posed an existential threat. Well, Putin, clever guy, is posing an existential threat to Europe. The guy's got a fraction of your GNP. You will be able to deal with him, but it'll cost.
Till now, I thought that former form of European Union is over. We spent last 20 years mostly reforming our internal legal system.
I got it. And now you're going to be reforming your security system. And you think history ends? It most certainly does not. And that every generation has to make its contributions. So your generation is on right now.
Do you consider Trump a psychopath?
I'm not a psychiatrist. Rather than getting into whether you do or don't like Trump and whether you're going to be a psychoanalyst, let's just look at what he's doing, right? And psychopath comes to motivations and things.
What is he doing?
What is he doing? He is blowing America's greatest strengths, which are its global alliance system would be one of them. It's scientific expertise. It used to have massive soft power where people were actually interested in emulating parts of the United States. Not anymore. And if this keeps on going, the United States dollar is going to lose its status as a reserve currency. And that'll be quite something when that happens, because it has implications for the US debt and all sorts of other things. So here's a framework which I think helps to when you're thinking about Trump and other people. So in warfare, people talk about the tactical, operational, and strategic level. So tactical, or we can look at politics as draw parallels. So tactical is I have a piece of military equipment. Example I always use is a tank. Tank, it can shoot so far, a certain caliber ordnance can destroy the tank, and then you put these tanks together in tank units. But at the operational level, which is a battle or a campaign, whether you often it's take territory, defend territory, then you're going to be putting together all kinds of tank units, air units, a whole ground units, a whole series of things. That's the operational level. But here's the level that actually counts. Strategic level, which is why are you doing this? So let's go to Trump. He's really good at the tactical level of saying really fun tweets that really get his base going. They get global attention.
The public space, right?
Public space, yeah. He can do things like invite Zelensky to the White House and have J.D. Vance gang up on him, 2 fluent English speakers, and then treating a guest in this way. And so you get a little, at the tactical level, they're doing this power play. But then what is the operational, let alone the strategic level of doing this? Or better yet, with the Canadians, with all these tariffs, you go to the tactical level. The United States announces we're going to do whatever it is to Canada. And so it makes it look like I'm so powerful. Well, Canadians are readjusting their entire security framework. Also, Canadians as individuals are boycotting US goods. Wouldn't you? And Americans would do the same thing if Canadians were doing it to them. So the United States has a tremendous number of politicians who are focused at the operational level of getting me reelected. But what's going on now is going to prejudice the security of their children. It's profound. It's what the original question is. We're barreling our way into a world war by doing these sorts of things. Other people, another thing I've talked about is half-court tennis. Americans are focused all on Team America. Well, get on the other side of the net, because Team Russia and Team China and Team Europe, and also there's this thing called the third world, which is lots of other people are going to be making their own decisions.
Maybe we should try to find the reason what's happening now in Obama politics, that he was mostly focused on peace.
Well, I'm not a fan of monocausal events, nor am I a fan of saying, oh, there's this one person, right? So to take Donald Trump or Barack Obama, they represent large parts of the United States. So it's not just one person. There's a whole ecosystem out there. But there's a whole other thing that's driving things as far as I can. You're asking me about American domestic politics. Even though I'm an American, that's not my expertise. I've studied the tortured relations of Russia and China. That's where my expertise lies. But as an American just living here, Americans having trouble making ends meet and paying bills. And they're struggling, and they're trying to identify what has happened to them, right? And they're looking at it and go, well, it's immigrants. Or they look at all the identity politics. There are all these things. But I wonder whether they've identified the problem correctly, that they're having trouble making it. But I wonder if they haven't misidentified the root cause. And one cause, I'll toss it your way, and you may know much more about it than I do. This would be just a hypothesis. If we got 3 people in the United States who presently have more wealth than the bottom 50%, and these 3 people have basically amassed it in the last 10 or 15 years, it means the US tax system is broken. And if the tax system is broken, it means you're allocating money in all the wrong different directions, right? Because people are trying to either get their special paragraph in the tax code, and then you make sure you've got someone on the Democrat and Republican side to keep your little paragraph in there to do whatever. But this has profound effects through society. So I wonder if that isn't part of the problem, is there's just, and then if you're going to be hating immigrants, then you're going to start hating Europeans, and away you go. It's like blaming outsiders. And isn't this human? We all love to blame other people for our troubles. Look at Putin. Oh, it's NATO expansion, da 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 da, Russians, and they're all on board with that. Instead of, no, your country's screwed up because guess why? You haven't unscrewed it. It's your country. And the United States has problems. Guess why? It's us. It's our failures. And we don't want to look at it that way. We want to blame other people.
What's the optimal posture if United States commitment becomes transactional? Because Trump is transactional.
It is transactional. What about, why is there even a become there? Right now, it is transactional. All right, you're going to wait and see what happens in the midterm elections. And so they're coming up fairly soon. And we shall see whether it's a double down. Everyone thinks, it's great, let's keep doing this. Or whether you start seeing a rethink about this is a great mistake. There's no one on this planet, I don't believe, knows whether the current trajectory of the United States is the last gasp of a bunch of old people, in which case it feels like sort of the Soviet Union, right? Where you got, what was it, Brezhnev, who'd had a stroke in '76, and he's sort of hanging around until he finally dies. And then you get Chernyenko and Andropov, who drops off, or whatever, I got them backwards. And then finally, you have to do generational change. And then, of course, the new generation kills the patient trying to save it. But we've had this sclerotic leadership in the United States. So is it just the end of that? And then we're going to be off to something better? Or is this the new future of the United States, of this authoritarian country? I mean, you look at the level of cruelty.
Is it the new future for United States?
Two diametrically opposed possibilities. I don't know the answer to that question. For instance, I've given a lecture on the Cold War, and there are two umbrella explanations for why the Cold War turned out the way it did. One, and they're based on the same data. One of them, it took every single failing of the Soviet Union, every smart thing the West ever did in order for it to end the way it did, which means the West barely won. Or the other one is the Soviet Union was such a mess that it was inevitable to end the way it did. So those are same data. The story is when you're dealing with 9 billion people or whatever the world population is, what happens in the world is an aggregate of all of that. None of us knows the answer.
What is one thing Europe and Poland should not do?
What it should not do is act like all these problems are going to go away and sit there and just ignore national security issues. Because, and I'm thinking that, there's a really important thing, and this is for liberals, many of whom the last thing they would ever want to do is visit a war on someone else. Understand that you do not choose necessarily when wars begin. If it's a war of aggression and you're the aggressor, sure, you may decide. But ask Ukrainians whether they decided the day that war was going to begin. They most certainly did not. And so it is, the rules-based order is something you want to protect within castle walls. So as in the last Cold War, the castle walls held. It wasn't great. It was no good for Poland because you were in the wrong castle walls. But for those who were in the West, in the castle walls, they lived perfectly decent lives while funding very large military budgets, and they're going on great family trips while, as you would know full well being from Poland, although Poles live far better than Russians, that they lived in a misery of their own making. So this is the importance. You better make sure the castle walls will hold, and then you will live wonderful lives where you're at. And think about it. Where does everyone want to travel? MAGA people included, when they want to travel abroad, if they've got some pocket change. Be Europe. Why? Because it's beautiful. It's wonderful. The architectural heritage, everything. Convenience of travel, the works. So you have a wonderful place to live. Protect it, and you'll keep it, regardless of what idiocy goes on in Washington.
What can Europe do to break the United States-Russia wedge?
I don't think there is a US, United States, Russia wedge. I mean, Putin loves it that the war in Ukraine he doesn't love, it's not going well, but they dreamed of breaking the Atlantic Alliance, and Trump is delivering that one on a platter to them. So, but I don't think Trump is doing that. So you're worried about some strategic thing for Trump? Putin may be strategic, but Trump most certainly is not. He's doing it for whatever. He's a real estate mogul. He's like, I want this territory, this territory, this territory. And then at the tactical level, if we're in the room together, he wants to dominate whoever's in the room, right? And whatever it is, I want this, I get this. And then if I don't get this, I up the ante. So I didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, so Norway, here I come. I mean, okay. So you'll be okay in Europe. The problem with continental dictators is they aren't willing to make any meaningful sacrifices for each other.
Do you recognize Trump as a dictator?
He's a continentalist. So it's a question of if he wants unlimited executive power. That would define him as a dictator, if that's what he really wants. Apparently he said so, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on what he said lately. It changes, right? You don't know from one tweet to the next.
Should United Nations be fundamentally reformed?
It always has been incapable. The United Nations was never capable of reining in the behavior of the veto-holding five because they just veto it, right? It was never capable of doing that. Organizations like the UN get reformed as a result of warfare in really big ways if you're going to change around who the veto players are up there. That's how it has. Or it takes really great statespeople to, but can you imagine a president of France saying, oh, gee whiz, we're going to give up our position as a veto player on the UN, our last claim to kind of great power of the uppermost echelons. Can you picture that happening? Because actually we need to make way for India, which, oh, P.S. has 1 billion people on the planet. I don't see them. I see them vetoing that.
Is the United States ready to surrender Taiwan?
It ain't ours, but the great question on the rules-based order is based on sovereignty. And it would, if the United States does not lift a finger about Taiwan.
Vivek Ramaswamy called for that.
Oh, what a great guy. Yeah, that would not surprise me of him saying that at all. But if the rules-based order goes down, it's rather like the oxygen in this room. We all take it for granted. If the oxygen disappeared, you'd notice it rather rapidly. It means you're into the law of the jungle, where even if the United States is a big country, it's not bigger than the combined everybody else, and everybody else is going to be wanting to pay us back for doing the awful things that we've been doing. These are profound mistakes. In sports terminology, they're called own goals. And go back to my framework, these are all tactical and operational decisions that are being made in the United States for people who want to stay in power. It's at that level. It has nothing to do with improving the lives of their children, of improving the prosperity and security of the United States. It is actively undermining those things, the long-term things, for the immediate things. That's what's going on.